see everyone in this really beautiful space, iconic space here at Kaufman Astoria Studios, the Zukor Theater, correct? Zukor Theater, right? A lot of history here, a lot of history not only in this building, but certainly in this part of New York City. We are the epicenter of film and television. Certainly there are productions happening all over New York City, but the history and just the love and passion and the excitement for film and television continues to thrive in this community. So we're very excited to be here. My name is Kevin Lopez. I am a filmmaker, but I'm also very proud to say that I am the founding principal of Motion Picture Technical High School, coming to not too far from here. I just passed by on my way here, and it just kind of like smacks me in the face every time I see the building. Our Northern Boulevard. The building will be open in 2025, but we are starting our school in September of this year at a temporary site in Sunnyside, Queens, just a couple of blocks away. So again, it's a high school film and CTE school at the, like I said, the intersection of media arts and career and technical education to really help elevate young people and inspire young people to really pursue below-the-line careers in film and television that are oftentimes historically inaccessible to many young people here in New York City. And again, this is part of a larger ecosystem that already exists with some really awesome film schools that exist all around New York City that really kind of help move the needle in a positive direction for young people. When they asked me about, when the Chancellor's office asked me about why start a new film school when there's so many awesome film programs around New York City, my response literally said, we need to open 20 more. And the reason is because those amazing film programs that exist, that continue to thrive, are only just a few schools that are sustainable. There are some programs that emerge and really don't last for an extended period of time because the film teacher may leave, or because there aren't enough licensed teachers or film teachers that have the experience to really run a sustainable film program over the course of many, many years. So having a new school and a new voice in this conversation, I think, just provides more opportunities for young people, particularly young people of color here in New York City that just want access to these jobs. First off, they want to know what these jobs are, they want access to them, and then we got to train them so that they can retain those jobs if they choose to move in that direction. Obviously, once we're at full scale, we'll have 800 students at Motion Picture Tech. Not all those kids are going to pursue film or entertainment or television, but we want to give them those like life skills, those soft skills, those technical skills that they can take to any industry. Right? Being a filmmaker is very empowering. I'm a perfect example of that. I went to film school, I've made films, and I've used those transferable skills to build a school. Right? So I'm not really changing what I do on a daily basis, and those of you that know me here know that's true. So enough about me. I'm going to introduce our incredible panelists. But first, before we move on, I just got to give a huge shout out to Nina Fiore. Let's give it up to Nina. Been instrumental in like my own growth and process building this school. Just an incredible thought partner, friend. But you're the reason why we're all here, and I can't thank you enough, for this opportunity, right? Like we're here because of like you have a lot of connections with like some really important people, and I really appreciate this opportunity. So I'm going to go and just quickly introduce the folks that are here, and then we'll pass them the task can to introduce. To elaborate on what they do in their particular roles. We'll start to my left here, Dr. Rosanne Limoncelli, who is the Senior Director at the NYU Martin Scorsese Virtual Production Center. Welcome, Dr. Rosanne Limoncelli. Thank you. Let's give it up for We also have Jackie Gutierrez. Jackie is a film production CTE educator at the Academy for Careers in Television and Film, ACTVF. Where she graduated from as well. She's been involved in several youth programs early in her career, and most recently a graduate from NYC's Success Via Apprenticeship Program. Welcome, Jackie. Cool. Next we have Greene, who is the former Global Education Manager at Netflix, now the Marketing Professor at the School of Professional Studies at NYU, and the Gabelli Business School at Fordham. Lori's also the founder of LPG EDU, an education consultancy for the entertainment, media, and marketing industry. Welcome. Okay, we have Jacob Stebel, Program Director at the Ghetto Film School, and also a former NYC DOE film teacher at the Cinema School in the Bronx. Welcome, Jacob. To the left of Jacob, we have Hanan Harchol, the Big Apple award-winning teacher, director of the film department at the High School of Art and Design in Midtown. Hanan has also recently directed and produced an award-winning independent film titled About a Teacher, which is now on Amazon Prime. Welcome, Hanan. Very excited to have Dr. Adam Brier here, Deputy Executive Director for CTE, Career and Technical Education at the New York City Public Schools. Thank you, Adam, for joining us. Last but not least, super excited to have Cecilia Chien here, ARRI Rentals Outreach.
Client Outreach Coordinator.
Client Outreach Coordinator. There you go. That's like, also a really wonderful artist herself, an IATSE Local 600 camera technician. Thank you, Cecilia, for joining us as well. All right. Well, again, thank you guys so much for being here. We're here till about 6:30 or so, but we are going to give folks in the audience an opportunity to ask any questions. We're going to go around, and maybe we can start with Cecilia on her side to tell us a little bit about what you do, Cecilia, in your role at ARRI and also your role in Local 600.
Okay. I've been at ARRI Rental for 16 years. My first career was in animation. My second career was in visual effects. Did a lot of commercials. I worked as a flame compositor. So now for 16 years at ARRI Rental, 15 of those was being a shop technician, helping and supporting a lot of camera technicians and DPs on their work. As well as this past year, I'm a client outreach coordinator, which means that I do new business, I reach out and do events. So if you want to come to our next event, let me know. And I'll be here tomorrow again for the movie Open Worlds at Movie. So you can talk to me as well. There you go.
Thank you, Cecilia. All right, Adam, tell us a little bit about the work that you do at CTE, and also we know that, or I know that you were a founding principal at some point for New York City Public Schools, so you have a really awesome and wonderful career within the DOE. Now, the New York City Public School System. Tell us about your role now at CTE.
Thank you. Yes, so the 29th year in the DOE. Started as a high school English teacher, became an assistant principal in a school that had a business program, but it was just for the honors students. I didn't feel comfortable with that. Approached the principal about expanding it. That wasn't his vision. So I decided to start my own high school, and thank you for mentioning that, Academy of Hospitality and Tourism. I started in automotive high school, was in an Academy of Finance. So every year of my career was in a CTE high school. I eventually left to become a school reviewer and a deputy superintendent, but when the position opened up to lead CTE, I simply had to return. So my office will be supporting Kevin's new school.
Thank you, Adam. That's awesome. Right? It's like, the Godfather story. They keep pulling you back in. So welcome back, and we're so much better for your support. And you've been instrumental in the work that we're doing this year. And all the other CTE schools out there. So it's important that CTE has a voice here because, like we said, as a media education discussion, it really is great to explore how the arts, how media arts, how cinema can truly be empowered by career and technical education. So thank you very much. Hanan, tell us about your incredible journey. Tell us about what you do actually at Art Design, which is also a visual arts and CTE school. Really, in full disclosure, replicating a lot of the success that we've done, that we experienced at Art Design. I was the assistant principal of art and CTE at the High School of Art and Design, but before that, I co-ran the film program with Hanan, and I've known Hanan for many years. So tell us about what you do.
Well, I couldn't express more fervently how important CTE, career technical education is. It's essentially a way for kids to study high school, but also pick a major. In our school, there are 8 majors. I teach the film major, but there's also animation, architecture, cartooning, etc. And they come to school for academics, but also to pursue the major professionally. By the time they finish the high school career, they've done 15 films from beginning to end. But it's not just that they've made films, they've also done internships, made connections, they've seen how their films win awards, are used in industry. So here's where I really have to turn again to Nina, because Nina is an integral part of our program. You know, we need industry partners who basically give our kids places to do internships, but also many of our student films are going to be showcased here at the Astoria Film Festival. It's very rewarding to make your own work as an artist. But I only came to teaching at age 39. I was dragged kicking and screaming. I really wanted to leave in my first year. And I found that actually the process of using the gifts that you have to help other people become their best creative selves ends up being far more rewarding than anything I could have done for myself. Thank you for this opportunity, and again, I'm here because of Nina. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Jacob, thanks for joining us. It's I gotta tell you, this is an all-star team, an all-star panel. I mean, I don't know how you pulled everyone together like this.
They were very generous.
They also all love you. You are like a wonderful.
That's what it is. I think we're all gravitating towards. So thank you again, Nina. But Jacob, I've known you for a bunch of years. When you were at the cinema school is a really fascinating and interesting place. When I ran a film program in Soundview in the Bronx over 15 years ago, a lot of my students, which was a good thing, that means that we were probably doing something pretty cool in our middle school. They were going to your school in the cinema school. But then you transitioned over to the nonprofit side, working with the Ghetto Film School. So tell us about the work that you do now at Ghetto Film School, and maybe what's next?
Sure. So the cinema school, it still exists, Soundview, District 12 in the Bronx. And it was the first high school in the country to require every single student to take 4 years of narrative filmmaking, which was pretty impressive. It was co-founded by Bloomberg administration with the DOE and the Ghetto Film School, who I now work for. So Ghetto Film School in 2017 left to expand. They opened up a branch in Los Angeles, and in 2020 opened up a branch in London. Soon to open a branch somewhere else. Very exciting. Can't talk about it right now. But as the program, I had one of my former students from my first year teaching. When he graduated from Vassar, he became the executive director of the Ghetto Film School in New York, and he pulled me away from the DOE, and I became the program director of Ghetto Film School. Ghetto Film School is a nonprofit started in the year 2000 to educate, develop, and celebrate the next generation of great storytellers. My job is to implement and write curriculum for our 30-month fellows program. It's entirely free. It culminates in an international film with a $100,000 budget that high school kids get to shoot. And once they graduate, they get support with job training and network training until they are 35 years old.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you very much, Jacob. It's incredible. And I think that there's some really awesome organizations here in New York, like Ghetto Film School, certainly RealWorks, who we work with as well, that are just, what I love about what you guys do is the way you approach adolescent filmmakers, and you treat them like professionals, right? This notion that like teenagers should not be part of like the professional landscape is kind of an old way of thinking, right? And CTE is empowering adults like us, schools, organizations, community-based organizations, to really empower young people to have a voice. Right? Because just because they're under 18 doesn't mean that they don't have the ability, especially New York City kids, right? It's one of the most talented kids that you can ever find. So I really appreciate the work that you do, Jake. And like your Instagram is like insane. And Ghetto Film School, you guys are all flying all over the world with these young people making movies. So that's really great. Lori, your bio resume is like out of this world. Very impressive.
Thank you.
I'm very nervous to talk. So like,
Well, I'm really thrilled to be here. So I spent 4 years at Netflix running global education, and people are very surprised that Netflix had an education arm. So Netflix does, as many of you might know, local content for local audiences using local crew. And often that crew is not as well versed in global best practices. So my team would go in and we would train them. And so I created an education strategy because Netflix is in like 200 countries around the world. So I created a strategy where we could scale education all over the world. And so what we did is we ended up using my strategy to do training in 20 countries on 6 continents in post-production, in music supervision, music editing, and then we did, and many other production scheduling and budgeting. We did a lot of post-production, DITs, many different subject areas, and I started the very first e-learning on how to create content, the ABCs of content creation, We also did some e-learning on how to pitch to Netflix, how to write for series. And basically what we would do is we would look at what the challenges were in different marketplaces, and we would go in and solve them. So for instance, in Indonesia, we were finding out that the delivery of our content was very late. We would come 6 weeks, 8 weeks late. And the local team on the ground really figured out that what the problem was editing. So we partnered with the New York Film Academy, and they came to Indonesia. We all went to Indonesia, and we taught them the basics of organization and assistant editing. And we never said that it was the American way or the Eastern, the Western way to do things. We always talk about it as global best practices, because all over the world you could shoot in one place and post in another country and do VFX in another country. So everyone was really very interested in global best practices. And by doing this around the world, we increased the level of creativity, quality, and efficiency of Netflix titles, which they always said that we want them loved, created in one place and loved in one place, but be able to go global around the world. So I did that for 4.5 years. I've been teaching at NYU, not at Tisch, unfortunately. I teach at the School of Professional Studies for 15 years. I actually am in the middle of teaching at Fordham at the Gabelli Business School, influencer content creation and marketing, and I just think education is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from or what your background is. It really has the power to boost your life in ways that are almost unimaginable. I'm on the board of New York Women in Communications, and we had our big I'm the VP of social strategy, and we run this huge award program. And I remember sitting there, it was actually just last week, and I was sitting there listening to the stories. And one woman said she went into PR because the chair of my program at NYU, who used to teach at Seton Hall, and she was so inspired by PR that now she is the global chief communications officer of BBD&O. And then there was another woman who says, when I posted on LinkedIn, I said she went from Hungary to Harvard to a CEO. And it was because of Prep or something, Prep Up, yes. This program that pulls underrepresented people, out of schools and really helps them and gives them a chance and pays for their education. So to me, and so because of all of this, and much like you, I really believe in helping people be the best that they can be, and I think education is the most wonderful and best way to do that. So I started LPG EDU, which is an education consultancy. So thanks so much.
All right, Jackie, thank you for joining us. I'm very excited to see you. Jackie and I have also a nice little history. We met over 10 years ago, probably, when Jackie was in the Tribeca Film Institute, the Tribeca Film Fellows, and I just thought you were just incredible, the work that you were doing there under V. Bravo. V. Bravo used to be the education director for Tribeca Film Institute. He and I produced the film not too long ago, so that those relationships really last over a long period of time. And the fact that you're doing such great work at ACTVF and the way the students gravitate towards you and how committed you are is really inspiring. So tell us about the day-to-day work as a DOE film CTE teacher at such a great school.
Ken?
I have a big voice, so
Yes.
I'm going to put this mic a little bit back before I start speaking.
Lower the levels on it.
Yeah. So, thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate this. I'm just going to give you a little bit of insight, but we live in the confines of whatever space we're in, whether it's a classroom, a studio, whatever it is, and oftentimes it's hard for us to get out and let people hear these stories. So I really appreciate everyone in the audience right now, because this adds to the conversation that happens within the world of education. Now, what do I do every day? Every day, if I'm being totally honest with you guys, I don't like to just label myself as a film teacher. I like to just use a general term as educator, because within the classroom, there is just not only the content that we're teaching, but also the life lessons, the supports, the advisement, the constant stories and conversations that we're having on a day-to-day that also get embedded into their films, right? I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because I think that this is significant to what I do on a daily basis. in that there was a speaker about last panel who kept mentioning, by God's grace, and I am so in that same position of, I don't know how the stars aligned for me, but it did, and I'm very thankful that it did. I am from New York City, born and bred. I had the privilege of going to a CTE high school when I was 14 years old. I'm telling this story real quick just because the kids get a kick out of it. Maybe you guys might as well. But in the first month of high school, I punched a girl in the face because she said something to me, and I had to stay after school for tutoring. And when I stayed after school for tutoring, I had to spend hours editing, right? Because my mom was like, you're not going to get back on the train and get into a little fight. So I stayed after school. I went weeks on weeks editing, and my first film got screened at the Tribeca Film Institute. That was that moment of, wow, I made a story, and I showed it, and I engaged a conversation with people and humans, and it was a beautiful story, right? And that ignited my first moment. So I spent 4 years filming. I went back into industry, did some camera work, and then I decided, I still needed money. So I was doing a little teaching on the side. So I was a teaching artist, right? And I give so much respect to all the teaching artists in New York City and all these nonprofit organizations that we see. That's beautiful work as well. And so I say this to say that because of my teaching on the side as well as my industry work happening, I just merged the two passions. I joined the Success Via Apprenticeship Program in 2015. I firmly believe this is like one of the #1 reasons why we have such phenomenal CTE teachers. It allows you the benefit of teaching while doing industry work simultaneously. And this gave me the privilege to meet Hanan in my first year. Hanan, again, stars align. Hanan, a Big Apple award-winning teacher, was my first co-teacher, my first mentor in education. So I got like the best teacher to support my first semester, right? And so I say that to say that one of his big speeches, I don't know if you still recite this all the time, but he speaks about perseverance. That's his, you know what speech I'm talking about? The perseverance speech. So just like keep pushing, and I think this goes to like teachers, students, everyone in the world, right? And just keep pushing through. And so I keep that in my mind. It's something that I also say, and just pushing through. So that first, just like Hanan mentioned, that first year of like, holy crap, this is a hard job, right? I felt that my first year as well. It's a lot that goes into it. So I kept pushing forward. I say this all to say that this is like a process, right? So I was able to finally get my own classroom a couple of years later, and now we get to the part of what do I do? I create stories with students. We are a beautiful and talented team of industry professionals that can come together and teach below the line jobs. So we specialize in a variety of different disciplines, whether it be directing, whether it be camera, whether it be sound, whether it be grip and electric, whether it be, I gotta do the whole list because I gotta give credit to my colleagues. Production design, post-production, hair and makeup, and I'm definitely missing one. Costume, post-production, and sound. So basically, students get to have an expertise in a different range of areas, and it's a beautiful, beautiful show when they all come together and lead these whole production, just the students alone. So what do I do on a daily basis? I let the students tell their stories that they want to tell, while assuring that they receive those technical skills that they can seamlessly transition into the industry with.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right, Rosanne, so you are at really the cutting edge of production on so many levels. I know ARRI also does a lot of this really great work around virtual production. Tell us first off what virtual production is, right? Because I'm still kind of trying to wrap my mind around it, and what you do specifically with that organization.
Sure. Well, I'll start with what is virtual production. Okay, if you don't know, I'm sure you do at least know what green screen is, where actors work in front of a green screen, and then later they replace that green screen. Replace that green screen with some other environment, right? Usually it's something that's computer generated or something very something that they couldn't get on location. In virtual production, we do it the other way around. We create the environment, whether it's very realistic looking or something out of this world. And we put it up on a giant screen that might be as big as this room, that might be as big as this whole room. That giant screen is made of computer screens that are connected to a giant server room that's running software. There's a lot of different kinds of software that make these environments, but the main one is Unreal Engine, which is a game engine software. And you need these big servers and engineers running it and this giant screen to run this software because it's like live rendering the whole time. So if you play games, if you're a gamer at all, you maybe know a little bit more about what I'm talking about because it's the same technology. So things are moving and changing in real time. And if you know anything about filmmaking and editing, if you put some effects on your, on your timeline, you have to wait for it to render before you can play it. This is all rendering live. So it takes a whole room full of servers, high-end computers and cards, and engineers to make that happen. It's connected and gen-locked to the camera so that when the camera and the actors move around, everything stays in a realistic way so that the background looks like it's real right behind the actors. So that's virtual production. So there's a lot more pre-visualization involved, a lot more software in advance, and less special effects after the fact. So it's kind of taking a lot of that visual effects that usually happens in post-production and putting it in pre-production.
Very interesting. If I could just stay with you for 1 second, just kind of along the direction that you're discussing about the new technologies that are out there. How are young people, or how can someone train in this field so they become marketable to companies, organizations that are doing this kind of work?
Sure. So actually, it's easier than you think. Young people today are all playing games, and Unreal Engine, which is the software I'm talking about, is actually free to download and to learn. There's lots of YouTube videos to learn this software, and what Unreal Engine allows you to do is create environments. They have downloadable assets, they call them. You could download a desert, and you could fill it with rocks, or create a spaceship, or anything you could think of, you could do in Unreal Engine. And if you get to be, really great at Unreal Engine, and all it takes is practice, you could find a job in the industry. It's still brand new, virtual production. It's a big part of the film industry, but it's just really starting out. And every production company is doing it, every commercial is doing it. It's pretty invisible to the viewer. Any movie or commercial you see with people in a car right now, that's done virtual production. That's a screen behind them, and it's not just a screen like this where it doesn't move. It's tracking, it's working with the camera and the actor so that it looks real. But it's much safer, it's more accessible. You don't have to worry about the sun setting or filming. Your studio is your studio. So there's a lot of great benefits to virtual production. These big giant walls can be expensive, and they can be expensive to rent. But all the jobs that go with it are regular film production jobs and a little more software and practice to get into.
Yeah, I just want to say that when I was at Netflix, we were really looking at some of the jobs of the future and what there weren't enough jobs in, and virtual production is one of them. There aren't enough people skilled in that, and so that is a great opportunity for students to go into virtual production. The other thing, believe it or not, is production accounting. There is a huge shortage all over the world of production accounting and people who know how to run accounts for film. So just something else to think about.
Thanks for saying that, because back to what I do at NYU. I'm a filmmaker, I'm a writer, and I'm a teacher, and I'm an administrator. I'm the senior director of film technologies at NYU at Tisch School of the Arts. So that means running a team of people that do a lot of things at Tisch School of the Arts Film School: production, post-production, sound, animation, classroom technology, and virtual production. It's a big team of people that do everything our students need, our 1,500 film students need to learn what they want to learn and to graduate with all their brilliant stories. And it's all around storytelling. We've all said the same thing. It's always about the storytelling and how can you use technology to make the most amazing stories. But because virtual production, and this was the same thing with me, Lori, I kept hearing, oh, there's not enough people that know how to do this, and
Something to think about is, and I have my ACTVF colleagues here, you know, just how accessible these skill sets are. The challenge, of course, is getting the hardware, getting the facilities. But this is New York City. There are so many facilities out there right now that we may not even know about. The challenge for us is to identify who those are, those potential partners, and get our kids in there, right? To get exposure to this work. Because when I was at SCAD, for example, a couple of years ago, I went there with the art design principal, the virtual production studio, where they were saying that their students are getting plucked out of school by the companies that are poaching them because there aren't enough people that are talented or skilled in this area. So very exciting. I really appreciate how it's undermining the gatekeepers, like you said. So really, really wonderful. It's exciting. Sorry.
But also, you have to keep in mind it doesn't replace real filmmakers, because you're just taking those filmmakers and you bring them into a studio like at ARRI Rental. And right now, we're doing a car stage where we have a 360 track that could track the person while you're in that stage. So I want to express that because like a lot of filmmakers who are here now, like DPs, they're a little scared of the new technology and they think they're going to be replaced. Far from it. It's the opposite reaction. You want those filmmakers to still make that environment real and to the eye. Even gaffers, electricians. We started we call it the creative space to mirror the other facilities in LA and London, and with great success. Some of our music videos, like the Nora Jones, it used still Super 8 and Super 16 film with one of our newest cameras with the Alexa 35, using the Canon 16 to 66 lens. So if you keep that in mind, there's no replacing people. It's only making it better, you know?
it just adds a few new crew members
Yes.
to that project.
So I'm really happy you said that, Cecilia, because when the film industry is always evolving, literally by the day. If you look back at historical moments, these inflection points in the history of cinema, right? When sound was introduced, when color was introduced, that created kind of an existential crisis within the unions, within the industry themselves. And like you said, the professionals had to lean into it, and really great opportunities emerge on the other side, right? So I'm happy you mentioned that but there's a conversation right now about production design and art directors and folks that are in the crafts department. Are those jobs going to be undermined with virtual production? The answer is no. In fact, when green screen was the big craze, right, there were more jobs on the production design. You go to all these studios, and departments have to build entire worlds here still, right? Sorry, Cecilia, you have something else?
Oh, I just wanted to mention one more thing. You know, like how the weather's been really crazy, like last year with all the rains and storms.
Yeah.
It kept people inside, and they were still busy. They still get their paychecks, regardless of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure that film productions cannot be done in hurricanes, tornadoes. Take your pick.
Yeah. And I know, and perfect timing, thank you for passing it to Adam, because I know the wheels are turning, right? Like the connection, film is an art form, right? And motion picture tech, as many, of my colleagues can agree with their respective art schools, the art and the storytelling is at the forefront of what we plan to do, but it's driven and powered by career and technical education, right? Making those connections with the classrooms with actual jobs that exist, right? So knowing that the professional landscape within film and television is evolving in such a fast pace, how do you feel about that from a CTE lens?
Well, look, I feel wonderful about it because that's what's supposed to happen. All right, and I'm going to speak to career and technical education again for the whole landscape.
Yeah.
And just for the big picture, across the New York City Department of Education, New York City Public Schools, we have approximately 300 career and technical education programs, not in 300 schools. Oftentimes a school has multiple programs. And of those, about 230 are considered approved by New York State Ed Department. And because of that, they receive additional funding. key to these programs and key to keeping a program alive and not having it wither away is to make sure that a program is labor market aligned. And in order to do that, a school, a program, an industry needs to be involved. We have to have partners, we have to have commissions, which we have, and we have to have people in the industry meeting with schools to look at curriculum, to look at programs, to look at processes, even to sometimes just speak with teachers about what's happening in the field so that they can say to the teacher, no, stop doing that, or do this, or pivot this way. Because if we're going to train students for careers that either don't exist or are sunsetting, a nicer way of saying dying, then what good is the career and technical education program? And that is, well, that's partly why the school you're starting is going to be a wonderful addition to our portfolio. Because labor market aligned, the technical side of filmmaking, there's an industry in New York City which isn't always populated by people from New York City, and we know that we have students who need jobs when they graduate. So you're creating the space for students to be able to potentially enter the middle class if they aren't in it already, and or engage in a career that's fulfilling, right? So that labor market alignment piece is central to what we do. And it's central to what my office does in supporting schools, but we can't do it on our own. Schools also have to, and you know this, create your own advisory boards, create your connections to make sure that students have work-based learning experiences that are open to them, to make sure that industry leaders are visiting the school, to speak with students, to meet with them, to go through mock, fill in a blank line, right? Because we support culinary arts, we support hospitality, we support business, filmmaking, and every career and technical education program we can think of. But this, everything that you all just spoke about is deeply exciting.
They're deliberately all here on the panel for that reason.
All by design.
It doesn't have to be virtual production, it have to be virtual, and I can't stress it enough, so I was like, I'm bringing the people in to talk about it.
What I also think is really important is equity. And I think that sometimes, given the political situation, that's being back-channeled a little bit, and that's a real shame. And so I think everyone who is in education, everyone who is in industry, who can affect a change, should affect a change. And when I was at Netflix, I had the great honor of doing a training for the Sami Film School in Norway and teaching them production scheduling and budgeting. When I did a training down in Colombia, I noticed that we had all men instructors, and I said to the organization who was creating it, and I said, you need to find a woman. And they were like, what? I'm like, no, you need to find a woman. And when I went down there to do the training, and there were only like 4 women, it was technical training. It was a digital imaging technologist, right? Tech training, color management, pipelines, those kinds of things. And what I found was the women that were in the class, the participants I call them, they came up to me afterwards and they said, I can't begin to tell you how important it was that I got to see a woman on there. Then I had another training in South Africa, and there was no woman. It was another organization on it. And they said, well, we only have 1 space left. We only have like sound left. I said, well, you better find a really good woman in sound then. And because I was the client. But I could do that. But we all, as an industry, really have to look at what does that look like and how can we affect a change. If you have the power, you need to take it. And they ended up finding an Oscar-winning supervising sound editor who now, every project that they do, she's a trainer. So I just think it's really important that we all of us, everyone who has the power and the ability, really works to help equalize the industry.
Thank you so much, Lori. I have a question for our classroom educators, and Jacob, I certainly have you in that category, working as a community-based organization, but having all the experience at the Bronx Cinema School. What I really love about CTE after being a film teacher for so many years in the city, is that it encouraged me to lean into like my own work as an artist, as a filmmaker, and no other space really allows you for that, because it encourages teachers to have their fingers on the pulse, to like stay current, stay excited, passionate, vibrant, and that spills into our classrooms as we've experienced with my colleagues here. For my DOE teachers, and of course Jacob, as a community-based organization, how does your own personal work as a filmmaker, as an artist, as a storyteller, you guys all make stuff, I know you do, I follow your Instagram. How does that translate in the classroom to help kind of inspire the next generation of professionals, right, that can actually get jobs down the line?
I spent my 20s making a no-budget feature, and I learned how not to make a film by doing that. I'm sure we can all relate, there are filmmakers in here. It was a great way to learn how not to do something. It also eliminated all my patience for production, but once I started teaching film, all of a sudden I just wanted to be a filmmaker again. I couldn't believe how much I loved it. It also, just to go back to the question of equity, because I think it's very relevant for this. Teaching in District 12 in the South Bronx, teaching and seeing my students, and thinking about where the puck is going, to quote Wayne Gretzky, we're talking about virtual production. You know, Unreal Engine, yes, it's free to download, it is free to learn, but it doesn't run on machines running less than an i7 and too well. And when the pandemic hit, we were giving out earlier generation iPads to young people. So when we're talking about CTE, and we're talking about getting this funding, and we're trying to prepare our students for these jobs, we need to be making sure that we are using this funding to make sure that these young people are not just getting to use these devices in the classroom, but they get to take them home. Bill Gates, the reason he started Microsoft is not because he's some genius. He lived close enough to a library that had a computer that he could access 24/7, right? Our young people increasingly do not have access to, there's no equity of access to technology in New York City on a consistent basis. We still have a systems of have and have-nots, and we have to do our best to eliminate that, mitigate that. And that's really what I've noticed. It's my number one takeaway from teaching, is that you could have the most talented young person in the world, but if they don't have the technology to practice with, they're going to struggle. And that's something I hope we can all work on together.
Here, here.
Good point.
Before I answer your question, I just wanted to quickly mention how important it is to be connected with industry and the pulse of what's going on. We went to a big media convention and we stopped by the Blackmagic booth, and we now use Blackmagic cameras, and I heard now from 2 industry professionals, even though a lot of people argue against this, but a lot of television shows are now going into a complete Blackmagic Da Vinci design, and the reason is they have their proprietary software that allows them to take the black camera in 6K RAW without having to create proxies, which is this very time-consuming process where you take a big, large file and make it into a small file, and on a very downgraded computer, as long as you stay within the Blackmagic system, you can edit in 6K RAW in Da Vinci, which only costs $300, and output it. And the fact that you're saving ultimately so much time within that system is why so many television shows are switching to it. Again, you know, the DOE is still with Adobe, which is fantastic. Adobe's doing amazing things with AI, but I think both should be learned. So we're going to be opening up a workstation where we're experimenting now with Da Vinci as well, so we can stay at the forefront. So it's very, very important that as a CTE school, you do stay connected to industry, you inform yourself what's happening in the independent film market.
But Hanan, you actually went out and fetched that information yourself.
I did.
Right? I mean, that's like the anatomy of a CTE teacher, is to be able to be excited enough, or have the resources or the network enough, or the bandwidth to go out and explore that information, right? And then translate that. The hard part is bringing that into a classroom, right?
Right, and that's where, for example, Adobe is magnificent, because Adobe has this partnership with the DOE where all of a sudden all the kids can get complete access to the Adobe suite, and that gives the access part, which is amazing. But again, the reason our kids have the computers that we have is because of that special Perkins funding, which we get by being an approved CTE program. So you see how the whole ecosystem works together. So I agree with you, Kevin, we should have 20 more CTE schools like the one you're starting, which is why I'm so supportive of what you're doing. In terms of my work as an artist, I just want to say, here's really where my movie does come in, because for 10 years I spent working with kids on their stories. Not on my stories, on their stories. And I found that their stories are actually a lot more interesting than my stories. So when it finally came time for me to make my first feature film, I decided to tell the story about how I had to learn that my story isn't as exciting, and it's actually about their story. So the title About a Teacher is ironic, because I had to learn in order to become a good teacher. It's not about me, it's about the students and their stories. Similarly, when I wanted to cast the movie, well, who better to cast than my former students? And when I had to film the movie, well, who better to film it than a graduating student of mine, and we rented a big expensive camera and he filmed it. So, I used my students throughout the movie, and it was very, very satisfying to do that. The last thing that I'll say is, and this is the big area where our teachers, I think all teachers, become very burnt out. You need the summer to recuperate. You really do, because it's a very, very intensive job, where you're giving and giving, and every kid has their own universe, and you have to adapt to their universe. So it's a very exhausting job. But I highly encourage teachers not to rest during the summer. I maintain a strict 6-day work schedule during the summer where I make my own work. So I've done 17 short animations, I did the feature film, I recorded 3 CDs, all during the summer. I plan my summer very, very carefully, and the reason is, if you don't fulfill your own creative life, if you don't have your own path, your own journey, it's very, very difficult to have something left over to then be excited about the kids' stories and their journeys. So it's, they say the oxygen mask, put it on the mom first. And some of my kids call me mom accidentally.
Very much.
Well, the way you have the capacity to be nurturing is by making sure that you nurture yourself, and that includes creating.
Thank you. Let's pass it on to Jackie, and then I want to open it up to some questions before we start wrapping up with Jackie.
Are we still going?
You can still roll it.
I paused. Yeah, time goes on rolling.
Leave it to me.
Let's see if we can get this going.
The Gotham Sound people are gonna laugh at us more.
But do you have the other one?
I do have the other one. I have it in my pocket.
You have a backup task cam?
I do. Hey, you know what?
Not that bad.
This is the media arts education channel, right?
This is wrong.
We have a backup.
Who else has a task cam in here? Just raise your hand.
So Jackie, you know the question, right? It's like
I got
your role is, as an educator, but as a CT educator, really kind of encouraging you to stay kind of at the forefront of the field, but also knowing that you're working with these young people and you're sending them off to a highly uncertain realm. Not only are there a lot of gatekeepers, like Rosanne mentioned, but the technologies are evolving so fast. Like, how do you, I ask myself this all the time, how do I live with myself telling my kids to become filmmakers? I think about that all the time, right? And the fact that I'm a filmmaker too allows me to kind of like live that struggle with them. So it's a very strong community that you end up building, but tell me about your experience and your process.
If I talk a lot, guys, blame him because he just added to the initial question. Because this is a 2-part question now. So in terms of the stories, right? Like my work and how I bring that into the classroom. I'm a Latina from Queens. I've lived in Queens all my life. I look just like my students. I will walk down the halls and students will think that I am one of their friends, and then they'll be like, hey, Emily, oh, Jackie, sorry, that's you. I look like them, which means that I very likely, and I come from the same neighborhoods as them, have the same experiences. So in terms of my stories are about communities. That's actually in some of the spaces that I met Kevin. We were doing some restorative work. While I was going to my first classroom, I kind of passed the baton to him as we were doing some restorative work with Art and Design High School, as well as some correctional spaces. So I say this to say that it's about community, it's about building relationships, it's about telling these stories that people just relate to, and it feels good to just talk about and express. a lot of these kids, they have things going on that we all probably went through as well as kids, but how do they express this? What's their medium? That's the conversation, right? And for us, it's film. And so getting them to express that and helping them execute that, I guess for me, my work is very similar, or at least my passion is very similar to what they can potentially do. How do I talk to my mom, right? Adding certain phrases or imagery like saying "pow pow." If you guys know what that is, that's a little like, you know, a little slap on the wrist if you're in trouble. Chancleta, that's a little slipper if you're in trouble. So these little stories that help them really evoke what's happening in their homes. I like to assure that that's shown, whether we hear it, whether we see it, whatever the case is. So making sure that that's shown in the classroom, but then in addition to the second point, the technical component, right? And then assuring that everyone is mastering a certain skill, so again, they can seamlessly transition into the industry, and assure that those stories are still being spoken about and still being talked about, because like we keep mentioning with diversity, I was in a lot of youth spaces when I was younger. Oftentimes, I'm still walking into spaces as an adult, as an educator within any industry space, and I'm often still the one Latina. I'm often still the one woman, right? It's very common. And while we're doing amazing work and the industry's still pioneering through, it's still very common. So I say this all to say that these stories are very important. Whomever is in the classroom is extremely important, and telling these stories is very important.
Amazing. Thank you, Jackie.
Now, feeling okay about telling your students to get into the film world,
Yeah.
because I think that filmmaking gives us so many skills, okay? You have to work in a crew, you have to delegate duties, you have to figure out how to collaborate, you have to communicate clearly with everybody, so everybody's on the same board. You have to be a team. I mean, I was never on a team in high school, and everybody talks about, oh, the team experience was so great, it really taught me a lot, and I missed out on that. But filmmaking is the same kind of thing. And, I started a high school program more than 25 years ago, and that was really what it was based on, this idea that everyone should take filmmaking, because it teaches you so many skills. It doesn't matter if you're going to be a filmmaker or what role you're going to be in the film industry or education industry, but it teaches you so many valuable skills that then you can go on to do anything after that. If you've made a film, if you've been through a film school or a film high school or something, you can go on to do any job.
Anything. And it's so empowering.
We also say like just the confidence you get from having done this really hard thing is so empowering, right?
Huge
Like,
part of it.
Yeah, it's like, imagine having gone through a film CTE school, right? Like ACTVF, like, cinema school, like art and design, right? Sinatra has a fantastic program here that I used to co-run. And a kid decides not to pursue education, but they're a filmmaker. They're a filmmaker. Once you've been bitten by the bug, that's in you, right? And you're in a boardroom, or you're in a law class, and you're in any space, any industry, and you have the ability to tell a story, you have the ability to articulate your authentic voice, like you're mentioning, Jackie, and you have the technical skills, right? We're talking about mastery, right? You mentioned, kid needs to have access to those resources so they can accumulate those 10,000 hours, right? That Malcolm Gladwell talks about in Outliers, right? Right? You have that in your back pocket, and you pull it out, you're gonna get promoted in whatever space you're in, and that confidence that filmmakers have, because we know as filmmakers, as storytellers, how absolutely difficult it is to make a film.
And with filmmaking is problem solving.
That's
So
it.
problem solving all day long when you're making a film, and that's right, you get promoted because you get any other job, you know how to problem solve, you're not afraid of making mistakes or afraid to learn, and you work your way up.
We talk about it in art and design, Murphy's Law, right? You're on a set, you're gonna encounter a million problems, right? In advertising, right? Video Village is there, your clients are watching. You can't be open about something that's going wrong. You gotta stay cool, right? I always tell the kids, an Astoria is coming on set, who cares, right? The show must go on, right? So it's those skill sets that are very empowering, but kids need to hear that. It's like, yeah, all right, you don't want to do this anymore, right? Junior year, they're kind of, I don't want to make any more films. But all right, lean into it because you're going to come out with some hard and soft skills that are very, very, very powerful. Let's open it up to some folks here. If you have some questions, yeah, Brian, good to see you. Yeah, good to see you too. Yeah. Thank you guys.
I'll Merv Griffin you, if you're old enough to know who that is.
Can you hold it? Or?
I know where
hold it. You can hold it?
Oh, yeah, sure. So thank you so much for the conversation. It's good to see you again. I haven't seen you in a few years. You know, Kevin is one of these guys that on the way here today, I was like, I wonder if Kevin is still as ambitious and energetic as he was 2 years ago. I think you're more. You're just like a very inspiring human, and I'm so grateful to know you and to share space with you for these like last 10 years in different ways. And thank you for the conversation. It's been really enlightening. My question is, there's a lot of conversation around AI in the filmmaking industry. And I'm curious to hear from you all, what are some things that you're looking forward to and excited about, and some of the opportunities that you see within AI? We hear a lot about, you know, some of the arguments against it. I'm interested in hearing what's exciting about it. Thank you.
Well, just as, it's so interesting that you asked that, because yesterday I was at a presentation by an education representative from Adobe, and he was showing what's coming very soon. Like they have the technology, it's in beta, and it's coming to Premiere. And it's coming at lightning speed. So, you know when you're filming something and you just wish that the camera could hold for a couple more seconds on that person's expression, you can now extend the timeline and it'll extend that person's just standing there artificially. Or for example, you know when you film somebody walking into a room and you forgot to take that one sign off the wall or something, in AI you can just mark that sign, it takes the sign off the room and leaves the frame exactly the same way. They showed an example of, there's some kind of heist and a person opens up a briefcase, and in the briefcase they showed how you sketch out the briefcase, and you can say, I want that briefcase filled with diamonds. You know, I want that briefcase filled with rubber ducks, and AI fills that in. So it's not something that is going to take things away, but rather give people many, many more tools if used in the right way. What I'm looking forward to in AI is not for people to generate things in AI, but rather to use AI to help them sketch out various kinds of ideas, and then use that in combination with their own creativity to leverage their ability to be able to do many, many more things. And I think it's already happening, and it's going to happen much more. On the flip side, the part that worries me, on the flip side, yeah, exactly. On the flip side, the part that worries me is in the same presentation, they showed Adobe Logo Maker, and or Logo Designer, and again, it's in beta. But basically, you can say, I want a logo for an empanada restaurant in this kind of theme, and it designs a logo for you instantly.